The Boeing 747-400, the mainstay of long-haul airline operations for over 2 decades, became iconic for many reasons. But one particular example not only set records during her career in airline service, but also remains one of the best-preserved examples of the type today. Open to the public and a true icon of Australian aviation, this particular queen is resting her wings at a New South Wales Air Museum. Located approximately 80 miles or 128 kilometres south of Sydney on the main coastal highway heading towards the resort town of Batemans Bay lies Albion Park. At first glance, the town itself may not offer much to the passing tourist. However, there lies a hidden gem within its boundaries. At the local Shellharbour Airport, also known as Illawarra Regional Airport, just on the northern outskirts of Albion Park, can be found a true piece of Australian aviation heritage. This quiet regional airport, which offers flights to Melbourne and Brisbane via Link Airways, is also the home of the Historical Aircraft Restoration Society, or HARS, Museum. And it is at HARS that one can find the first Boeing 747-400 ever delivered to Qantas way back in 1989. Registered Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha and named City of Canberra, the aircraft towers over its fellow exhibits, still resplendent in its easily identifiable white and red Flying Kangaroo Qantas livery. It has been with HARS since March 2015 and is a wonderful example of well-preserved aviation history. The City of Canberra was the first of an initial order of 4 Boeing 747-400s made by Qantas on March 2, 1987. The manufacturer delivered the plane to the airline in August 1989. The airline had previously operated a total of 22 Boeing 747-200s, 6 -300s, and 2 of the long-range shortened fuselage Boeing 747 SP before the arrival in the fleet of Boeing's latest variant of its hugely successful wide-body airliner. The aircraft first rolled off the Boeing production line at Everett near Seattle in February 1989. Powered by 4 Rolls-Royce RB211-524G2 power plants, the plane was the 12th airframe of the new variant to be produced. The aircraft first took to the air under the Boeing test registration November 6064 Papa on July 3, 1989, and its Australian registration of Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha, along with its allocated name of City of Canberra, was applied on July 11th of that year. Following customer acceptance flights to Las Vegas, where Qantas executives formally accepted the plane, and then on to Vancouver, the aircraft returned to Everett to be prepared for its formal delivery flight to its new home in Sydney, Australia. However, the airline had planned something rather special for the delivery flight of this new addition to its fleet. With its new long-range capabilities, the airline decided it would fly the London to Sydney segment of its delivery flight in one single hop, thereby setting a new record for the world's longest flight by a commercial airliner in terms of distance flown. On August 13, 1989, and under the guidance of senior Qantas captain David Massey Green, the 747 departed Everett on the first leg of its delivery flight. It flew to London Heathrow Airport before embarking on the onward leg to Sydney 3 days later. To promote the extended range of the new variant, Qantas had decided to make the London-Sydney leg a promotional event. With the word "long reach" emblazoned on the forward section of each side of the fuselage, the plan was to fly the second leg non-stop using a unique blend of aviation fuel to enable the flight to cover the 10,573 miles or 17,116 kilometres without the need for a refuelling stopover. Having had a day on the ground in London, Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha was prepared for its record-breaking flight. On the morning of August 16, 1989, the aircraft and a skeleton crew were towed to the end of the runway before starting its engines and embarking on its world record-breaking flight. At 08:35, the aircraft's fuel tanks were topped off, and we mean completely topped off, so much so that a little excess fuel dripped from the vents at the end of the wings. The engines were started in turn, and the heavy aircraft lumbered down runway 27 left at Heathrow as QF7441 at the start of its epic voyage. After a flight lasting 20 hours and 9 minutes, the aircraft touched down at Sydney's Kingsford Smith Airport on August 17, 1989. The flight plans subsequently showed that the fuel load would have only allowed a total flight time of 20 hours and 47 minutes, leaving little room for error. This flight became the longest delivery flight of a commercial airliner ever, until it lost its crown to a Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777-200ER delivery from Everett to Kuala Lumpur in 1993. That flight travelled a distance of 12,455 miles or 20,044 kilometres, pipping the Qantas Marathon by almost 2,000 miles. After 25 years and 4 months of outstanding service to the carrier, Qantas finally retired the aircraft in January 2015. Indeed, Qantas was the only airline the plane had flown for in its entire career. The final passenger flight operated by the aircraft was from Johannesburg to Sydney as QF64 on January 13, 2015. During its flying career, the aircraft logged a total of 13,833 flights, carried 4,094,568 passengers, and had flown nearly 51 million miles or 85 million kilometres, the equivalent of 110 return trips to the moon. After protracted discussions leading up to its retirement from commercial service, Qantas and HARS came to an agreement whereby the aircraft would be flown to HARS's site in Albion Park. Museum staff, along with a number of present and former Qantas employees, would preserve the plane and put it on display to the public. HARS formally acquired City of Canberra on March 8, 2015 as a gift from Qantas. The donation of the plane to HARS effectively saved the aircraft. Until then, the airline had planned to fly Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha to desert storage facilities in Victorville, California. Here, its fate would have been identical to many of its Qantas 747-400 sister ships, 30 of them in all, a sorry ending of being parted out and eventually scrapped. But with the donation agreed upon, arrangements were made to ferry Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha to its new retirement home, just a short hop from Sydney. The flight was several months in the planning, including the pilot spending more than 25 hours in a flight simulator in preparation. The official handover of ownership from Qantas to HARS was made on March 14, 2015, whereby the restoration company became the sole owner of City of Canberra. On the morning of March 8, 2015, Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha taxied out at Sydney Airport for the last time, watched by hundreds of Qantas employees as she made her way out to the departure runway. At 07:36, the crew advanced the throttles for the last time, and Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha, being light with minimal fuel on board, leapt into the sky and headed south to its new home. The final flight for Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha from Sydney to Illawarra Regional Airport was just under 12 minutes long, the shortest delivery flight by a Qantas 747 and said to be possibly the shortest delivery flight of any commercial airliner in history. Watched by thousands of spectators up early and lining the airport's perimeter, Captains Greg Matthews and Ossie Miller planted Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha down on Illawarra's runway at 07:48, drawing to a close the flying career of this special jet. Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha now dominates the landscape around the airport where she resides, her red and white tail with its iconic flying kangaroo logo visible from the surrounding neighbourhoods. She sits right outside the main visitors' entrance to the Haas Museum, creating quite the landmark for the attraction. The museum is open from 09:30 until 15:30 each day. Knowledgeable guides offer tours of the museum exhibits throughout opening hours in small groups, but the highlight for many will be the walk-through tour of Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha. During the tour, visitors get to walk from nose to tail on the main deck and also visit the upper deck, which is laid out in complete business class configuration. They can also visit the flight deck and even get a sneak peek of the crew rest area located above the main cabin at the rear under the tail. General admission to the museum includes the standard tour of Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha, where visitors spend around 20 to 25 minutes enjoying the aircraft. Walking around the underside of the port wing, the particularly observant visitor will notice an additional pylon inboard the existing No. 2 engine, which was once used to transport a spare engine to a stricken Qantas 747 stuck in Johannesburg, South Africa. The tour guides, many of whom are former Qantas employees, provide additional interesting background on the aircraft and its service career, as well as the 2 historic delivery flights the aircraft made in that time. Indeed, further exhibits in the HARS building add an additional dimension to the overall experience, making a day out at HARS highly recommended. The museum has a host of other exhibits, including both static aircraft and those that still fly. This includes the first DC-3 that flew for Trans-Australia Airlines and a Fokker F-27 that saw service with Ansett when it operated as Australia's second national carrier. If the thought of clambering all over a former Qantas Boeing 747-400 is not enough to inspire you to pencil in a trip to HARS on your next trip down under, then the museum has other plans that'll add to its appeal. In 2017, the famous Hollywood actor and all-round aviation enthusiast John Travolta gifted his prized Boeing 707-138 to HARS to join Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha. Travolta's beautiful aircraft is being prepared in the USA, and the museum hopes that it'll be ready for its ferry flight across the Pacific Ocean sometime in 2023. It flew with the airline as Victor Hotel Echo Bravo Mike and is something of a rarity. It is one of only 13 of the shorter variant 707-100 built by Boeing to a specification specifically requested by Qantas, the hot short-field performance. Another of the type, Victor Hotel X-Ray Bravo Alpha, resides at the Qantas Founders Museum located in Longreach, Queensland, standing alongside Victor Hotel Echo Bravo Quebec, one of the airline's original Boeing 747-200s. Did you ever take a ride on Victor Hotel Oscar Juliet Alpha or any of the Qantas 747-400s? Tell us about your experiences in the comments. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.